welcome to another episode or two episodes of An Inside Job, War and Addiction. I want to thank LTV for all the help and support with the production of this show. With the assistance we have been able to put with LTV's assistant. How's that? Got it out.
That's good.
We put together, this is going to be 58 and 59, a lot of episodes. The episodes involved the interview where I interview addicts and alcoholics in all phases of their journey through life. The environment in which they grew up in, the age when they began the beginning of their addiction. But I gotta go here. Switch to Dr. Gabor Mate. He's my man. Worked with addicts and alcoholics in Vancouver, Canada for 12 years, downtown, and hardcore addicts. So I like his book. I love his book. It was the inspiration for having this show, that everybody's dying. Anyway, explains addiction as biological, chemical, neurological, psychological, medical, emotional, social, political, economical, with spiritual underpinnings. So that's that. So we're gonna. My friend Danny came down. He came down once again from a city a ways away, and Danny and I go back forever. I consider him my best friend, and I feel like we're brothers. Maybe maybe this life or last life, but there's something between us.
Can I borrow $20?
And again, I have to say, he tries to be funny, and he just doesn't have it. He likes a he's a coffee man, and he goes crazy, and he just got coffee in from his roaster, and he makes fun of me because I have the, what's it called?
Oh, I don't even know what they're called.
Where you put in one at a time. Anyway, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Okay, welcome, Danny. Danny's been sober and clean for 38 years. Is it 39 yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, not till March. God willing.
Amazing amount of time. Amazing experiences. I mean, you're sober that long. We've listened to 1 million people, 1 million stories, 1 million experiences, and it's worth something. It's worth something. It is. So that's that. Welcome, Danny. We were chatting on the way down from my house, wondering where we want to go with this thing. And Danny does not get up early. He stays up all night, and he's still punch drunk from waking up. But he is here. He wants to keep it low key.
Low key.
Low key, personal experiences. Where are we going with this?
Well, I always say when we speak personally in 12-step meetings, that I always enjoy it because I get to talk about my two favorite subjects, myself and alcohol. So I
You
can't.
have to speak up. I can't hear you.
You wish you couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
No, I think that I always used to say to myself if I were giving a talk in AA, and sometimes you get, stage struck or something and lose your whole train of thought in front of a crowd of people, and I would just say to myself, what am I here for? Boom, and it would all come back right down to basics. I'm here to talk about myself and alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. We've both spoken at a lot of meetings, and like Danny said, you can get stuck up there or whatever. But we go when they ask us. We go, even if we just want to spit out our name, and that's where we tell some of the newcomers that when they're ready. I'm talking about the 12-step group, when they're ready to go up there. And the way I see speaking at meetings is everybody gets to know you. I mean, you're spilling your guts, which we both do. And I was trying to remember the thought I had, and that is, I'll tell you, between the coffee and that we're fortunate, thank you, person or whatever, that we're fortunate that we both can remember that. We see so many people come in and forget about that. Chanel, I go back to Chanel. She just forgets, and she said it just comes like that. Or one of her, Chanel has been on the show 6 or 7 times, and she's had time. It's worth seeing, and I'm doing a documentary on it. Getting sober 14 months, pushing, and then the one time she went out, she said she could just feel it coming, and nothing was going to stop her. She felt like it was coming for 3 weeks. Of course, she had backed off from the meetings, and boom, after 14 months.
I'll tell you, I do a little exercise, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend for everyone, but it works for me, to help me remember where I came from and where I could wind up again. Absolutely worst case scenario, but say I'm driving down. The other day, I saw a guy come out of the package store with a, 30-pack.
30-pack, yeah,
30-pack,
probably.
18-pack, I don't know, because they didn't have them when I was, but it was all enclosed in cardboard, weatherproof, everything easy to carry. Had it on his shoulder, and he had what he needed, and put it in his car and drove off. And I thought, wow, fantastic!
In the snowstorm.
What an efficient way to go. I mean, he's got everything right there, and he can start up. So then I get into a little fantasy for myself, and I go, yeah, that would be very nice. Go home and, warm by the fireside in the house, and you figure you'll moderate it for a couple of days, and have just enough and so forth, and then so you figure after that's gone, well, geez, something nice like, maybe I'll get a gallon of red wine and a gallon of white wine and some sherry and maybe a pint of cognac and some scotch.
You have to be prepared.
Yeah, just to have what I need. And, then the fantasy goes on. And then, and of course, in the matter of a very short time, you know, I'm sick, I'm hurting, I'm crazy,
Right.
I wish I was dead.
Right.
It never worked, no matter what fantasy in the world that I have. And so I do that because if the, you know, it looks nice to see people drinking socially. That's very nice. And
It's not socially when you got a 30 pack.
yeah. Well, you know,
I know.
maybe
There are people who
he
drink.
might have only had one beer a day for 30 days and skipped one day, 31 days.
Yeah.
Or gave one beer away. You know, and so I let it go because it gets the, you know, they say don't romanticize, don't romance the drink or whatever, you know. But you get those little flashes once in a while. And so I play it through. I just say, okay, let's go with this. And every time I go, whoa, yeah. And then I wake up with the bullfrogs on my mind and uh-oh. And, you know, so it goes away and then I'm satisfied. And, you know, so I go about my way. But I remember the small details of things like I would, when I was living in Hubbardston, where you had lived for a while, and
Till I almost burnt the place down.
yeah, but we were very forgiving, so it was all right.
No, Tom kicked me out.
He kicked you out that time?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot that.
That's Danny's sister, her husband, Tommy. And they were so gracious to take me in because I had left. But anyway.
But when I was living there, I would have our friend Bruce, who has died from this disease in the streets of Providence, which is incomprehensible. He was such a I don't know, sweet guy, whatever, good musician, and him coming over on and this was when the package stores weren't open on Sunday, and him coming over before he had gotten advanced in his illness, alcoholism. He would come over and he'd say, "Oh, Dan, yeah, Sunday morning. How, you know, have you got a beer?" And you know, he'd know I had some, you know, and so I'd grudgingly give him one, you know, and I'd be thinking to myself, man, you don't need it. So, you know, how can you ask me for a beer on Sunday? I need every one I have.
Some of the viewers wouldn't even know what Sundays were with the package stores closed.
Yeah, it was dreadful. I mean, well, New Hampshire was open, but if you had, you know, no gas and a dead battery and, you know, 2 feet of snow, whew, you had to tough it out. And so then I started, I liked sherry. My mother used to drink sherry socially, and I liked it, but I never could drink it socially. But if I had beer, I'd put it away, and I'd have a bottle of sherry on the shelf, and he'd come over and he'd say, "Have you got something? Have you got a beer today?" I'd say, "Well, I've got some sherry. Would you like a glass of sherry?" And nobody will take a glass of sherry.
I would.
Well, yeah, very few people. So you're pretty much golden, you know. Well, I'm sorry you don't like it. Too bad, you know. But I also used to pack a pint of cognac in my bureau drawer after one time when I was living down the Cape in my first marriage. And I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night with, which I realized later was withdrawals, because it was early on, you know, 5 or 6 years into my drinking, and I didn't realize that the amount I drank, I shouldn't let myself run out, you know, so I wasn't thinking, and, you know, hadn't had for 6 or 8 hours or something, and I woke in the night with the most horrendous panic attack, and I had nothing in the house, and I made it through the night. I had to get up and, just keep busy doing all kinds of insane things. And when I made it to morning and I could get to the package store, and I realized, it took me a little while to realize that, I had better not let myself run out of alcohol. So that then I used to start keeping a pint of cognac in my bureau drawer because I liked it and it was powerful and effective, but it wasn't something that I would think of generally. So I wasn't liable to drink it up in the course of my daily activities, so it would be there for me, So I'd have a bottle of sherry out front so people could see it in case anybody wanted a drink. I'd offer them a drink of sherry, and then I'd always have the cognac in my drawer and have beers stashed, and but it's an impossible thing, and to keep enough on hand, because I didn't like to buy quantities of stuff. Why not buy a couple of cases of beer and a bottle of I liked bourbon with my beer too, and but you could never buy enough. Or this alcoholic could never buy enough. I would drink whatever I bought, and so there was always running out. That's why it becomes a full-time job to keep yourself well lubricated, to try to keep yourself looking good, and to have enough. And to later in my drinking, I'm not talking too much, am I? Hope.
No, you said that's what you wanted to do today.
Talk. Later in my drinking, I would have a shorter period of time where I would be looking good before I would go over the high side or go over the low side. And so I would show up and visit my friends and family, once a week or something, stop in for a short time, and I'd always bring my stuff with me. And,
where were you living?
Let's see, at that time I was living in Hubbardston, I think.
Okay.
And I would come around, maybe see you on a Saturday night or something.
Down in Fitchburg?
Spend a few hours there, and so like if I visited my sister, and looked pretty good, but I'd visit her at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or something, have a couple of beers, which I was always carrying with me, and a little bouillon cube, those metal bouillon cube tins with 4 or 5 joints rolled in them. And so I'd be, disproportionately wiped out after a couple of beers and a joint at her house, and she'd be wondering, geez, I don't know why he's looking pretty bad after a few, Yeah. And the reason is I would have been drinking since last Tuesday when I visited her.
Yeah.
I would have been drinking continuously, but it would be on the, on the down low or whatever. I'd be hiding out, and I would resurface for the, when I was looking good and healthy enough or whatever that I could and those times got shorter and shorter, and the underground times got longer and longer. And I swear, too, later on, I mean, in the beginning, I was always a blackout drinker, and in the beginning it was just, oh, gee, I woke up on the couch. I hope my car is out there. Yeah, it's parked crooked, but was there and more or less remember where the few different bars that you would, or the last one you had been in or whatever. And then the blackouts later on, I swear that they became retroactive, where you'd start drinking on a Friday or something, and go into a blackout the next day and drink a few more days in a blackout. And then when you come out of it, I couldn't remember anything all the way back to halfway through the previous week. So I swear that blackouts got retroactive. I don't know why I don't have apparently more brain damage today than because when I stopped, I could feel the short circuits start happening in my brain, just little electrical misfires. And I knew, that, brain damage was happening, or it was about to. And, thank God I stopped, and I was listening to a cassette of Bill Wilson giving a talk right after Dr. Bob died this morning. I was listening to that, and he said that.
Explain who Dr. Bob is.
Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and but Bill Wilson said on this tape that he had only drunk for 17 years, and that was how many years I drank, and I had always thought, you too?
Yep.
Yeah, I always wondered how. We both know people that drank, 30, 40 years and stuff like that, and I always, how the hell did they make it through that long? But everybody's constitution is different, and also they may have controlled their drinking for a long time before it, took control of them. But another reason I know I'm an alcoholic and I belong to the group is because I'm still obsessed with alcohol. I haven't had a drink in 38 years, and yet it still comes to mind in a minute as one of my main interests. And, I'm ready to go off. Well, and so many other people in AA, that's one thing we do when we ride together to go to a speaking commitment, or we get together, after a meeting or whatever. We talk about when we used to drink and how great it was, right, and what happened. And so it's a real careful balancing act, I think, because we have to keep our awareness of alcohol foremost in our mind, because if we were to take that focus off of our problem of alcoholism, we know from experience, from all the people over the years and everything, that bam, it's something that lives forever. And I suppose a non-alcoholic, would say, what are you people
That's right. That's
talking
right.
about alcohol?
I asked
But it's
myself
always
that.
there.
Why are you still going? We know the answers, but
Yeah.
why? You've been sober 37 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
But it is
It's always alive.
like the center. Yeah. That's the center of our world, kind of.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Oh, and
problem.
that also is the reason why we're so grateful, and the reason why we work on our sobriety on a daily basis and are willing to help other people that, other people that are having a hard time, maybe one of us, but especially newcomers when they come on, because we're not like other people, I wouldn't say normal people. Jokingly, we call them earth people, but non-alcoholics. We know we could be dead tomorrow morning, with no, it's as close as the next drink.
Or would want to be dead that morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so it's a real strange, and that's why and I guess Bill Wilson said it was cunning, baffling, and insidious and powerful, or however it goes. And it is, in the early days when it was, from things I've read and heard, when they were first starting to get the first little bit of recovery going on in AA, those guys hung together like blood brothers, so close, because there wasn't an awareness of it outside of their circles, and the help wasn't available, the support for recovery or
society.
It wasn't there, and they hung together like. So we're really fortunate, I feel, in this day and age to have so much awareness and facilities and programs and understanding of the general public and so forth. It makes it a hell of a lot easier, I think, for us. I mean, it's never easy, but a hell of a lot easier for us than it was in those early days when, you might be the only alcoholic in your town and, somewhere isolated, and nobody would understand what was going on.
And the wife would be, let's say it's the guy, and gets into another jackpot, as we call it, drinking, and she finally had it. She make the old days, go to the church and make a pledge.
Take the pledge.
Not AA, make a pledge, and I don't know how that worked. We got a couple of minutes.
It didn't work. It worked for some people, of course. And again, there's AA and whatever 12-step programs are not the only way to get sober, and it says that in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. People can get sober on their own. People can get sober on willpower. People can get sober with religion. Or with, I don't know, maybe a health regime or something like that. But
okay, we got to wrap this up, and we're going to do another show. This is kind of laid back, and I believe you can still get stuff out of you. That's it. Wrap.